I never imagined my own flesh and blood would look me in the eye and try to evict me from the home I built, but desperation makes people incredibly bold. I'm Chloe Butler, a 64-year-old widow. My husband, Arthur, passed away 5 years ago, leaving me with a comfortable pension and the lease to our beautiful 3-bedroom apartment in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. I loved this place. My name was the only one on the lease, and I paid the $200 rent on time every single month. 10 months ago, my son Liam and his wife Harper came to me with a carefully rehearsed sob story. Their landlord had raised their rent, and they were trying to save for a down payment on a house. They asked if they could take my spare room for 6 months. Just 6 months. I agreed, charging them a modest $500 a month to cover the extra utilities and groceries they would consume. The problem started on week 2. Harper didn't just move in, she started a quiet, systematic takeover. I came home from grocery shopping one afternoon to find my kitchen completely rearranged. My heavy cast-iron skillets were shoved into the back of a bottom cabinet, replaced by her pastel-colored non-stick pans. "Oh, I reorganized," Harper chirped, not even looking up from her phone. "Your setup was just so outdated. This makes much more sense for our cooking style." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply put down my bags, pulled her pans off the stove, and placed my cast-iron skillets exactly where they belonged. "My kitchen, my setup." "Harper," I replied calmly. She rolled her eyes and muttered something harsh under her breath, walking away. Liam, who had been sitting on the couch the whole time, didn't defend me. He just stared blankly at the TV. That was my first major clue. They weren't here to be respectful guests. They were here to take over. And I absolutely wasn't going to let that happen. The 6-month mark came and went, and suddenly the talk of buying a house completely vanished from their vocabulary. The $500 monthly contribution that stopped around month 4. Whenever I brought it up, Liam would rub the back of his neck, looking anywhere but directly at me. "Things are tight right now, Mom," he mumbled one evening when I handed him the electric bill. "Harper had to get her car fixed. We'll catch up next month, I promise." I knew how much they both made. Things weren't tight. Harper came home with shopping bags from high-end boutiques at least twice a week. I watched her unbox a $400 espresso machine and set it right on my kitchen counter, pushing my reliable drip coffee maker into a dark corner. But the real disrespect wasn't just about the money. It was about how they treated my space and my memories. I came back from a weekend visiting a friend to find the living room walls completely bare. The framed photos of Arthur and me, the landscapes we'd collected from our travels, all gone. I found them stacked in a cardboard box by the trash chute. I carried the heavy box back inside and set it loudly on the dining table. Harper jumped. "What is this?" I asked, keeping my voice low and steady. "Oh, those," she waved a hand dismissively. They just didn't match the aesthetic. The apartment felt so cluttered. "We prefer a minimalist vibe." I raised an eyebrow. You don't own this apartment. You are guests who are 4 months behind on your expenses." I spent the next hour hanging every single picture back on the wall, right where they belonged. Harper locked herself in their bedroom, and Liam avoided me for 2 days. I stopped cooking for them that night. If they wanted to play house, they could feed themselves. But the tension in the air was growing thick, and I knew a breaking point was coming. By month 10, we were living like hostile roommates. I kept my groceries on my designated shelves, cooked my own meals, and ignored the passive-aggressive sighs whenever I watched my television in my living room. They treated me like an annoying roommate they were stuck with, rather than the mother providing them a near-free roof over their heads. Then I found the itinerary. I was wiping down the kitchen island one morning after they left for work. Harper had left her laptop open, perched on top of a stack of printed papers. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the bold, capitalized letters at the top of the page caught my eye. Paris. 14 days. I paused, picking up the paper to read the details. It was a fully paid 2-week luxury vacation. First-class flights. A boutique hotel near the Eiffel Tower. Pre-booked wine tours and expensive dinner reservations. The total cost, printed at the bottom, made my jaw tighten. It was easily enough for a solid down payment on a starter home. They hadn't paid me a single dime in 6 months, claiming they were barely scraping by. Yet here was undeniable proof they were throwing thousands of dollars at a luxury getaway, treating my home as their personal free storage unit while they lived it up. I folded the itinerary exactly how I found it and placed it back under the laptop. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt a cold, sharp clarity. I had raised Liam better than this, but he had made his selfish choices. That evening, I waited in the living room. I didn't have the TV on. I just sat in my favorite armchair, a cup of chamomile tea warming my hands. When they walked through the front door, laughing and carrying takeout bags from an expensive sushi place, I didn't greet them. "We need to talk." I stated my tone, leaving no room for argument. "Sit down." Liam and Harper exchanged a nervous look before dropping their food on the table and sitting on the sofa opposite me. Harper crossed her arms tightly, instantly defensive. "If this is about the electric bill again, Mom, I told you, I get paid on Friday." Liam started looking heavily annoyed. "It's not just the electric bill," I corrected. "It's the rent, the water, the groceries. It's 6 months of completely unpaid expenses. And yet, I see you're taking a 2-week first-class trip to Paris on Saturday." Harper's face flushed bright red. "You looked at my things? That's a total invasion of privacy." "You left it on my kitchen counter," I countered smoothly. "You have money for Europe, but not for the roof over your head. This arrangement is over. When you get back from Paris, I want you out." Harper scoffed, leaning back. "We can't move out. We haven't saved enough for a house yet." "Because you're going to Paris," I pointed out the obvious. Then Liam did something that permanently sealed his fate. He leaned forward, a smug, entitled grin spreading across his face. "Actually, Mom, we've been talking. This place is huge, too big for one person. You don't need 3 bedrooms." He chuckled, a sound that made my stomach turn. "I'm keeping the apartment. You move out. I like it here." Harper made it feel like a real home. "You should look into one of those retirement communities. We'll take over the lease." I stared at the boy I gave birth to. The audacity was truly breathtaking. My name was the only one on the lease. I paid every cent. "You want me to move out of my own home?" I asked, keeping my voice dangerously quiet. "It just makes sense." Liam shrugged. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I simply looked at him then, at Harper's triumphant smirk, and smiled. "Fine," I agreed softly. "Have a great trip." Saturday morning arrived far too quickly. Liam and Harper were bustling around the apartment, dragging massive designer suitcases toward the front door. They were practically glowing with excitement. Neither of them mentioned our conversation from Thursday night. In their minds, they had won. They truly thought I had accepted my defeat and would start packing my own bags, while they were sipping champagne over the Atlantic Ocean. Harper didn't even say goodbye to me. Liam gave me a brief, awkward pat on the shoulder. "We'll figure out the lease transfer when we get back." He threw over his shoulder as they headed to the elevator. "Oh, we'll definitely figure something out," I replied, closing the door firmly behind them. The second the lock clicked, I went into my bedroom and pulled out the 25 heavy-duty cardboard boxes I had quietly purchased and hidden in my closet the day before. I grabbed a roll of packing tape, a sharp marker, and got straight to work. I was completely methodical. I didn't throw their things. I didn't break a single item. I started in the guest bedroom, Every piece of clothing, every shoe, every expensive handbag Harper owned went into the boxes. I packed Liam's electronics, carefully wrapping them in their own towels. I took down the minimalist curtains Harper had hung and folded them neatly. I emptied the bathroom of their luxurious serums and lotions. In the kitchen, I boxed up the $400 espresso machine, the pastel pans, and every single specialized gadget they had crowded my counters with. The sharp sound of packing tape ripping echoed through the quiet apartment. Everything that belonged to them was box-taped and labeled. By 3 in the afternoon, my apartment was entirely mine again. The guest room was empty. The bathroom counters were clear. The kitchen looked exactly as it had a year ago. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, picked up my phone, and dialed a number I had saved on Friday. Hello. Yes, I need a locksmith at my apartment as soon as possible. The locksmith arrived within 30 minutes. He was a quiet, efficient man who didn't ask any unnecessary questions. For $250, he completely swapped out the deadbolt and the handle lock on my front door. He handed me 3 shiny new keys. I thanked him, tipped him well, and locked the door from the inside, listening to the solid, unfamiliar click. It was the best sound I had heard in months. Now came the heavy lifting. One by one, I dragged the 25 boxes and their remaining loose items out of my apartment and into the hallway. I live at the end of the corridor, so there is a wide recessed alcove right outside my door. I stacked the boxes neatly against the wall, ensuring they didn't block the neighbor's door or the fire exit stairwell. I even grouped them logically: kitchen stuff together, bathroom stuff together. I wasn't being malicious. I was just being thorough and finalizing my boundaries. Once the last box was outside, I stepped back into my home. The silence was beautiful. There were no heavy footsteps, no complaining about the Wi-Fi speed, no passive-aggressive remarks about my cooking. Just absolute peace. I walked into the kitchen, brewed a pot of tea using my old drip machine, and sat at the island. I pulled out my phone, opened my messages with Liam, and snapped a clear photo of the neat wall of boxes in the hallway. I typed a short, direct message. You wanted the apartment, but my name is on the lease. I decided to stay. Your belongings are in the hallway. The locks have been changed. Enjoy Paris. I hit send. Then I went into my phone's settings, blocked both Liam's and Harper's numbers, and put my phone on the charger in the bedroom. I didn't need to see the immediate fallout. I had a quiet, relaxing evening to enjoy. I slept better that night than I had in 10 long months. I woke up at 7 in the morning, made my coffee, and sat by the window watching the city wake up below me. When I finally checked my phone, I saw a string of missed calls from unknown international numbers and several lengthy voicemails. I didn't bother listening to a single one. I simply deleted them all. Around 10 o'clock, my apartment phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson, the building manager. I've known him for 5 years, and we always had a good, respectful relationship. Good morning, Chloe, he greeted, sounding a bit strained. I'm getting some very frantic emails from your son. He claims you illegally evicted him while he was on vacation, and that he needs me to let him in. Good morning, Mr. Henderson, I answered smoothly. Liam is not on the lease. Harper is not on the lease. They never submitted an application to be added, and they have not paid rent. They were long-term guests who severely overstayed their welcome. I asked them to leave, they refused, so I packed their belongings. There was a pause on the other end. Then a heavy sigh. He says he's going to sue the building if I don't give him a key. He can't sue you for denying entry to someone who has no legal residency here. He doesn't even have a piece of mail with this address on it. Everything is in my name. I paused, taking a sip of my coffee. If the boxes in the hallway are a fire hazard, please let me know, and I will hire a storage unit and have them moved there at his expense. Mr. Henderson chuckled softly. The boxes are neatly stacked. Chloe, they aren't bothering anyone. I'll reply to his email and let him know that as the sole leaseholder, you control the access. Enjoy your weekend. I hung up, smiling to myself. The boundaries were firmly set. The fortress was finally secure. The next 2 weeks were pure bliss. I deep-cleaned the apartment, scrubbing away the lingering, overly sweet scent of Harper's expensive candles. I bought new throw pillows, rearranged the living room furniture to open up the space, and even started a small indoor herb garden by the kitchen window. I took my home back inch by inch until it felt like mine again. On the day they were scheduled to return, I didn't change my routine. I didn't sit by the door, waiting anxiously. I was in the middle of reading a very good book when the heavy thudding started. Bang, 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 Mom, open the door. Liam's voice echoed aggressively through the thick wood. I calmly marked my page, stood up, and walked to the front door. I looked through the peephole. Liam looked exhausted, jet-lagged, and furious. Harper was standing behind him, her face red, glaring at the stack of 25 boxes lined up perfectly against the hallway wall. "I know, you're in there," Liam shouted, rattling the doorknob violently. The new lock held firm. "You can't do this. We live here." I didn't speak. Engaging with them while they were highly emotional would only lead to a screaming match, and I absolutely refused to yell in my own hallway. Instead, I took a plain white envelope from the console table. Inside was a piece of paper I had written earlier that morning. I slid the envelope slowly under the door. The banging stopped instantly. I watched through the peephole as Liam looked down, noticing the white paper. He snatched it off the floor and ripped it open. Harper leaned over his shoulder to read it. The note was simple. It read, You have your belongings. You have the money you saved by not paying rent. My home is no longer open to you. Do not knock again, or the building security will remove you." Harper let out a sound that was half gasp, half shriek. Harper lost whatever composure she had left. She started kicking the bottom of the heavy door. "You selfish old witch! You can't leave us in the hallway. We spent all our money in Paris. We have nowhere to go." Her screaming echoed loudly down the corridor. I simply stepped back from the door and waited. I knew this building. The walls were thick, but the hallway acoustics were unforgiving. It didn't take long. Less than 5 minutes later, the elevator doors chimed open. I checked the peephole again. 2 building security guards stepped out, looking deeply unamused by the scene. "Excuse me?" the head guard, Marcus, stated sternly. "We're getting noise complaints from 3 different units. You need to keep your voices down." "She locked us out," Liam yelled, pointing accusingly at my door. "She changed the locks. You need to let us in right now." Marcus crossed his arms. "Are you on the lease, sir?" Liam stuttered, losing his confidence. She's my mother. I've lived here for 10 months. That doesn't answer the question." "Are you on the lease?" "No." "But then you don't live here," Marcus interrupted firmly. "The leaseholder informed management that you are no longer welcome on the premises. You need to take your belongings and leave the building immediately." Harper burst into tears, dramatically slumping against one of the boxes. "We have 25 boxes. We can't carry this. Where are we supposed to go?" "That is not our concern, ma'am. You can call a moving van, but you cannot stay in this hallway. Start moving the boxes down to the lobby, or we will escort you off the property and leave the boxes on the sidewalk." Through the door, I heard Liam let out a defeated groan. "Mom, please," he begged, his voice cracking. "Just open the door. We can talk about this." I turned my back to the door and walked away. The talking time was over. It took them 2 grueling hours to haul all their boxes and luggage down to the lobby under the strict supervision of the security team. I watched quietly from my living room window as they eventually loaded everything into 2 different taxis, looking miserable and entirely exhausted. Weeks passed. The silence in the apartment became a comforting friend rather than an empty void. I didn't reach out to Liam, and for a long time, he didn't reach out to me. He knew better than to push his luck. Eventually, a letter arrived in my mailbox. It was from Liam. He explained that he and Harper were staying in a cramped, cheap motel outside the city limits. He admitted they had blown their savings in Europe banking heavily on living rent-free with me indefinitely. He apologized, though the words felt more like desperation than genuine remorse. He asked if I could lend them a few $1,000s for a security deposit on a new apartment. I took out my favorite stationery and wrote a brief, clear reply. Liam, you are a grown man. You and Harper made choices, and now you must manage the consequences of those choices. I will not fund your mistakes. I love you, but my peace of mind is no longer the price for your comfort. When you are settled, we can meet for a coffee at the diner downtown. Until then, take care of yourselves. I mailed it the next day. I felt no guilt, no lingering sadness. Some people might call it cold to put your own child out, but they don't understand the suffocation of being erased in your own home. I stood in my kitchen brewing a cup of tea in my heavy cast-iron kettle. The afternoon sun streamed warmly through the window, hitting my indoor herb garden. I looked around my quiet, clean, perfectly arranged apartment. Liam was right about one thing. I really do like it here.